Holly Topple, Dr. Holly Topple, and I'm your instructor for critical thinking. And we made it to week 2 because we critically thought. Anyway, so week 2 is all about language. And so the first thing you need to do is to listen to this TED Talk. It's fantastic. It'll give you 5 tips to improve your critical thinking. And like I said, this week is on language, and language is a system of symbols for thinking and communicating. And we're going to look at all this. Sentence meanings, word sense, semantic, perceptual, syntactic, and pragmatic. And we're going to use some tools, find out what tools different languages use. And basically, they all use the same. Your discussion question this week, you're going to have a couple different paragraphs. Oh, these are the objectives. Sorry. So I better start that over. Hi, and welcome to Critical Thinking Week 2. This week we're going to be discussing critical thinking and language. And just a note that I should have your grades in by Tuesday if you're listening to this a little bit earlier. So the first thing you're going to do is listen to a TED Talk on that. She will give you 5 tips to improve your critical thinking during this week. Next, language, like I said, that's what we're going to be thinking about, how critical thinking and language are married together and blend. And language is just a system of symbols for thinking and communicating. Each word has a semantic meaning, a perceptual meaning, syntactic, pragmatic, and every language also uses tools to clarify thinking, for social communication, to influence people, and word sense. What are our objectives for this week? What can you do after the week is over? You're going to be able to define what we mean by language and discuss how it is related to each culture. Well, not each culture, but culture in general. You're going to learn the different functions of language. You're going to discuss ways in which language and stereotypes shape our view, and like we talked about in interpersonal communication perception. We're going to learn the different types of definitions there is, and the difference between a purely verbal dispute and a genuine disagreement. We're going to look at communication styles and how sex and culture may influence them, and the examination of nonverbal communication, which is usually universal, and look at ways in which language and rhetoric can be used to manipulate people. What are some of the assignments that you need to do in the lectures? You're going to watch the following videos, which is this one on preview this document. It's a PPT. We're going to listen to Evaluating Language Part 1 and Evaluating Language Part 2. And then we have a reading assignment, which is Chapter 3, which is on language. Then our discussion question, which you need to always have 3 supports, very important. We're going to talk about what is the difference between words used by you and those used by your parents and grandparents. Like in my generation, we used the word groovy, and you don't use that word anymore. And that my kids started using the word hot, meaning something good. And we're hot to us. To my generation, it was kind of bad. And we're going to reflect on the differences in culture that you were reared in, especially even in America, United States. We have the Southern culture, we have the Northeast, we have Midwest, we have the Northwest, and then we have California. I'm just teasing on that. There's a lot of different cultures here. There's also different cultures by where you came from. So we're going to reflect on those. We're going to discuss how understanding the differences does help us become a better communicator, and we understand diversity. And how does this help you in the medical field by understanding cultural and communication and critical thinking. And then we're going to, you're going to put a quote from the book in there. What is the rubric again for discussions? I really want you to understand that, and then next week we're going to go into more detail about how I grade discussions. But each discussion, the whole thing is worth 100 points. And how do I divide up those points? Well, CHCP does that. The initial post is worth 20 points. You need to answer all these. These could be 4 different paragraphs with a quote. But that's a different. So when you reply to a student, more than just say, hey, I agree with you. You want to say, yeah, that culture that I was in, I understood this part and this part. So you kind of relate to them and teach them your wisdom. You reply to 2. Each one is worth 10 points. When you put a quote in there, it's worth 10 points. And then if you format it correctly, you get another 10. Grammar and spelling, no errors, 10 points. Professional, sounds you need to have empathetic and being on time also gives you a 10 points. Then what are the points you're going to earn? A discussion is 100. Your chapter reading is 100 when you're interactive and you open it up. That's how you score the points for reading. 100 points for homework and 100 points for your quiz.